If you're a nurse in Minnesota, your license is literally your livelihood. So today, we're doing a deep dive into the official guidelines to make sure you keep that license active, dodge some seriously costly penalties, and stay completely on the right side of state law.
But first, I want you to picture something. What exactly happens to your nursing license at the exact stroke of midnight on your expiration date? Do you get a friendly warning, maybe a little grace period to frantically finish up your paperwork?
Okay, let's dive into this, because the answer is a hard no. And the consequences, they're actually terrifying. The official Minnesota Board of Nursing documentation makes it crystal clear. If you practice even 1 minute after that midnight deadline, quote, Minnesota law classifies violation of the mandatory nurse licensure laws as a gross misdemeanor. A gross misdemeanor. You're not just looking at a bureaucratic oversight here. If you're caught practicing unauthorized, you're suddenly dealing with the criminal justice system.
But don't panic, because we've got a clear roadmap to keep you safe. In this explainer, we'll quickly walk through the risks of lapsing, how to find your specific deadline, the continuing education requirements, the step-by-step renewal process, and finally, a few vital disclaimers.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the risks of lapsing, and why you absolutely cannot afford to wait on this.
The absolute most critical thing to understand about the timeline here is that there is zero grace period. None. Unlike some other states where you might bump into an active-inactive status or get a 30-day buffer to sort things out, Minnesota just doesn't play that game. Your license expires immediately at midnight on your expiration date. Miss that cutoff and show up for your next shift, you are legally unauthorized to practice.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how painful the process becomes if you actually let it lapse. You can't just click renew on the website anymore. No, you are forced to submit a formal re-registration application, pay a non-refundable $105 fee, and awkwardly track down your most recent employer to send a confirmation of employment form directly to the board. And get this, depending on how long you've been lapsed, they might even force you to take a nurse refresher course before you can work again. It is a massive, stressful headache.
So, how do we avoid that nightmare entirely? Let's move on to Section 2, finding your exact renewal deadline using the odd/even rule.
Minnesota uses a schedule that is tied directly to your birth year. It's a 24-month cycle, and the formula is surprisingly simple once you see it. If you were born in an even-numbered year, you will always renew in even-numbered years. Born in an odd-numbered year, you're on an odd-year renewal cycle. Pretty straightforward, right? Let's actually test this out with a quick scenario to make sure it's crystal clear. Let's say you were born in August of 1985. Based on this system, when exactly is your expiration deadline? Well, your license would expire on August 31st, 2026. Now, I know what you're thinking. 1985 is an odd year, so renewals usually fall in odd years. But the source actually tells us that because of the 24-month cycle, anchored to a specific biennial period from when you were first licensed, the exact year can align slightly differently. The absolute golden rule here, though, the month and day. It is always, without fail, the absolute last day of your birth month, right at midnight. Which brings us right to Section 3, continuing education and earning those hours, because you cannot even open the renewal portal until these are done. If you're an RN or an advanced practice registered nurse, your magic number is 24. You've got to complete 24 contact hours of board-approved continuing education. Think ANCC-accredited programs within your 2-year cycle. Now, if you're a licensed practical nurse, an LPN, you actually have a different threshold. You need exactly 12 contact hours every 2 years to meet the state's standard. So the crucial point is what happens if the board randomly audits you and you can't prove you did those hours. The penalties cascade incredibly fast. First off, any unverified hours are automatically deferred and added to your next registration period. So, you're essentially doubling your workload for next time. But wait, it gets worse. Failing an audit is literally classified as professional misconduct. That gives the board direct grounds for disciplinary action. We're talking formal reprimands, fines, practice restrictions, or even flat-out suspending your license.
All right, assuming your CE hours are good to go, let's look at Section 4, the step-by-step renewal process.
Doing this online is absolutely the way to go, and it's actually super simple, even if you're completely new to the system. Just 3 quick steps. First, log into the Minnesota Board of Nursing Online Services portal. Second, complete the application by updating your info and explicitly confirming those CE hours. And third, pay the renewal fee. That's the whole shebang. Once it processes, you are secured for another 2 years. Keep in mind, Minnesota doesn't mail out physical registration cards anymore, so you just need to check your online account to verify it all went through.
And this brilliantly illustrates the financial benefit of staying on time. A standard renewal is just $85,
But if you miss that midnight deadline, boom, you're hit with a $105 penalty rate. Also, just as a quick aside, if you happen to be applying for licensure by endorsement from another state, you're looking at that $105 fee plus a $33.25 background check fee. Bottom line, pay your $85 on time. It is so much cheaper and easier.
I also want to quickly mention where your license actually works. Right now, your Minnesota license is a single state license. It only covers you in Minnesota. Now, there are bills out there, like Senate File 2608, trying to get Minnesota into the Enhanced Nurse Licensure Compact, but they aren't an active compact state just yet. So, if you're planning to take a travel nurse gig outside of MN, you're going to need to get separate single state licenses for those places for the time being.
And finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, resources and a few vital disclaimers.
Based on everything we've looked at, the single most actionable tip I can give you is to build rigorous tracking habits right now. Keep a dedicated digital folder of all your CE certificates, make sure the accreditation numbers are on there, and log your clinical hours as they happen. You definitely do not want to be caught scrambling and empty-handed if a random audit comes knocking. Being organized is literally your best defense.
Also, just to make sure you're totally covered, I'm going to read this official disclaimer verbatim. License renewal requirements can change. Always verify current requirements with the Minnesota Board of Nursing at mn.gov/boards/nursing. Bureaucracies are always evolving, so always check the official state website as your source of truth.
So, that brings us to one final, slightly urgent question for you to think about right now. Are your CE hours actually ready for your birth month? Don't wait until the last second and risk a gross misdemeanor, okay? Log in, check your hours, and get it done. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep those licenses active and, seriously, keep up the amazing work you do in healthcare.